All right, welcome to Verified. I'm Chad, better known as Riz, and I have with me today Michael, better known as Crypto MM, and Adam, better known as We the Sheeple. And these guys have been relentlessly searching through basically FOIA documents, trying to get evidence from the SEC on the Reggie Middleton case. And yeah, I did a video recently on the smoking flash drive. So these guys, basically in the 11th hour, have managed to secure the kraken replies. So the SEC originally gave us some subpoenas, but no replies from Kraken. So Michael basically started this whole thing off, trying to look for information on Kraken. And yeah, good day, gentlemen. Michael, you want to kick us off with this?
Yeah. Good morning, Riz. Good to see you again. Yeah, veridao has been pretty active since our last meeting with Yak. We were able to file amicus, and then as you say, we were able to get in and um, introduce other evidence as well, namely the Kraken files. That was for the we filed that in support of Reggie Middleton's motion to vacate. So this was stuff that we've been asking for, just curious token holders, looking for the truth. Filed this last year, and through a lot of work and persistence. It takes persistence to deal with the folks at the SEC.
Hmm.
Hey, got some material information, and we were able to, just because of the position we're in, turn around and get this in front of a federal judge pretty quickly. Took a day, I think, from the time we got it to the time it was in front of the judge. And that
That's
was very
pretty
exciting.
incredible.
Yeah, it is. And Adam had one as well. We as an amicus, we had three different filings in this case so far, which is pretty rare. And yeah, we were able to introduce one piece of evidence one time and two pieces of evidence the other time. So
So before we get too far into it, I want to introduce Adam as well here.
yeah.
Now you guys have basically it's not just the Kraken files. Like you guys have basically been expanding on a bunch of different subjects here. So Adam, you want to kind of catch us up on what you guys have been up to?
Sure. Well, good morning, all. Good to be back. And Michael had started this, as you said earlier, but one of the things I've been doing is jumping in as a supporting role. And at least that's how it started. And I started going off on my own and expanding on these different subjects and still going back and forth with most of my inquiries, but we are getting some, I guess, closure with some of them. So it was great to be part of the amicus. But as far as the FOIAs go, I've recently, actually last night, I received a response to one of the FOIAs we had with the Attorney Grievance Committee complaint and the Jorge Tenrero bar complaint. So really didn't get much there. They're holding back some of the documents for investigation purposes, but again, at least that's moving along. And then we have another one that's out there. It has to do with the Vader attendance for the
Right.
demonstration that was taking place when Reggie gave that to the SEC. So we are still moving along, and it's been really, really good to be a part of it. But I will say that they are giving us a run for our money, and persistence is the key here to getting any kind of results or to know further what's going on for the token holders.
Right. So my understanding is they're kind of very passive and not really giving you guys too much to go on. So basically, you guys got to keep asking and keep asking. And am I right in saying like there's a lot of turnover here? You're dealing with a lot of different people constantly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I guess I could just take that, Michael, just briefly, but pretty much every request that we've put in, we get the same response, which is, well, first of all, I could start with the fact that statutorily they have 20 business days to respond to you after you do the initial request. They almost always invoke a 10-day extension, so it turns it into 30. But then usually it goes beyond that, and there's really no way to account for it. So sometimes we'll follow up via email, and then we will get out of office responses from, let's say, the officer or the specialist involved. And a lot of times we'll find out that they had either left or had been moved to a different area or department.
Crazy. So this is why I mentioned relentless, because you guys really gotta stay on the ball with these guys.
You got to be relentless.
So just to recap real quick here, on the veridao site, a lot of the information these guys are searching out is being posted on there. It's not in real time, so there is still stuff to be posted. But if anyone's curious on what these guys are up to, you can check out the veridao.io website. On the left, just look for foia, and you should be able to find some of these documents.
Just a note about that. I am slow, and as you know, we mentioned last time, and you mentioned we are all volunteers, and I just haven't had time to get the full body of work, somewhat redacted to where we're comfortable, just for personal privacy, and then up on the website, and that there is a bottleneck there, and I apologize, but just so you know, like, I guess the best way, if folks really are curious about this, the way I engage the most with the community is through the Telegram chat. So if you have any questions about any of these documents, I'm an open book. I will share. I like having conversations about these. So if you are interested, please join the Veri Telegram chat and just ask.
Sure. And, I'd like to do a few more of these interviews because, like Adam said, there's quite a few topics to cover. The AGC, which is, all the bar complaints that were filed. We have 6 of them that we were filed to the AGC, the Attorney Grievance Committee, and it's all been basically passed on or passed back to the SEC's Office of General Counsel for review. So they're kind of, nobody works at the SEC anymore that's had these bar complaints filed against them. So it's, we're not sure if this is basically in limbo now. But obviously you guys are staying on it, and I appreciate that. So let's get back to the Kraken FOIAs, because this was a pretty explosive topic, a lot of back and forth between the veridao and the SEC. And it got pretty exciting there on July 14th, a lot of back and forth. So like I said, it was basically 11th hour kind of stuff. Do you want to kind of take us to the beginning with that, Michael?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm looking at the docket right now, and that is our entry, where we introduce the FOIA evidence is Doc 128. So that's the main document that we'll be looking at. Before that, previous to that, and again, like you said, that was in July 14th. Before that, we had filed an amicus in late June. That's whenever the veridao officially entered the case, and that was a very proud moment, right? And then not very long after, again in July, I was not expecting a reply from the SEC in regards to a FOIA request I filed the previous September. I wasn't expecting that, but lo and behold, we did get that through a lot of fighting. First thing I did was hand it to Kenny Hertz Perry. And they were like, "Hey, this the judge might want to see this. This is pretty interesting. It's pertinent. And it has to be all of these things for amicus to even be considered in this case. I mean, entering evidence in a case that isn't yours. I mean, very good friend of the court. You know what I mean? But it is, and we explain that. We go through it, and our attorney does say, "Hey, judge, we understand that these are." Unusual circumstances. I'm looking for the exact language Seth used here, but
yeah, from my understanding, it's quite rare for amicus to be, especially a supplemental one that has evidence.
Right.
Like, that is extremely rare.
Right. So then after that, the SEC actually, addressed us. and then Kenny Hertz Perry, they had one back and forth there with the, because the SEC was saying, hey, this this doesn't mean anything, and I guess I can understand playing the complete dumb of the dumb. Yeah, whenever you have a flash drive that says Veritaseum Inc., there is that 0.05% chance that somebody mislabeled it. But when you accompany it with an email that says one account, when you accompany it with all of the facts of this case, and not to mention, Jason's original motion to vacate and his reply to the SEC. I mean, you take in all these things, and it really, that 0.05% becomes almost 0%. You know what I mean? And so, yeah. So in my mind, it did, and we do have a smoking flash drive in my mind.
Sure.
It was unfortunate that it was not enough, because the goal of this was to secure an evidentiary hearing.
So let's just go back here real quick, and just for those who are kind of catching up, there's a lot to cover.
Sure.
So for those just kind of catching up, the evidence that Jason introduced in support of his motion to vacate, or Reggie's motion to vacate, was basically a transcript from the TRO hearing, basically having or showing Tenrero admitting on the record that the Kraken accounts were business addresses. First of all, Judge Hall was freezing business accounts, corporate accounts, not personal. She chose not to freeze the personal accounts. Whenever this statement was made, she then asked, is the Kraken account a business account or a bank account? And then basically Jorge Tenrero replied with, it's not a bank account, but it is an account we can put a freeze order on.
Freeze, yeah.
So this is the evidence that Jason submitted. And then we're going back to the Kraken replies now. And then basically these replies are showing that as early as May 31st, 2018, I believe is the date, is when the first package or the first reply to the SEC subpoenas from Kraken were delivered to the SEC via email. Now, we don't have the contents of those packages, but we definitely have multiple replies to the SEC subpoenas from Kraken, basically discussing, this one account, this flash drive labeled Veritaseum. And I made a previous point on this that, if the SEC is looking for information on Reggie's personal account, you would think they would label the flash drive Reggie Middleton, and not confuse Kraken with Veritaseum language. So this is in a nutshell the actual evidence, but let's just go back real quick and explore the timeline of these Kraken FOIAs, because from my understanding, we're dealing with over a year here. So you originally started this back in September or the previous September?
September 24.
Okay.
So at that point in July, which was just last month, it had been about 10 months. Yeah. And 10 months of back and forth. And that's not the only thing we had going on over that 10 months. So it was a lot. I was very happy to see it finally,
but you previously said that basically these FOIAs or your replies were split up into two different replies from the SEC.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. So it went in as one request for Kraken documents. So it was the Kraken FOIA, and the SEC split that in between 04, 058. They designated the subpoenas, and 04057 they're in a row. Obviously they split them and put them in a row. That was for communications, and Riz, it took 9-10 days. The fastest reply I have ever received, or Adam hasn't received a reply as fast as this one. And they got back about the communications, and they said there were none. And at that point in time, we were working. we were looking at the overall case, rereading it for the, I was rereading it for the second or third time, but others were rereading it. Others who were more professional than I was were reading it for the first time. And they were pointing out things that me as a layman, could not see in my first reading of this case. And again, back then, we had thought, hey, if there's no communications, Jorge did not do his job. I mean, again, we're just sitting here reading the case files, and if the SEC itself is having problems finding this very simple request info, something's wrong here, So actually, it led to the first bar complaint against Jorge was the response, again, coming from the SEC itself. I understand the SEC is not perfect, right? I understand that, but this was a very straightforward and clear response. There are no communications. If there are no communications, there's no nothing. What the heck are you guys doing? So again, it was kind of our way to jumpstart it. And I'm very glad that things happened the way they did. And because then fast forward and we did get the subpoenas. So then it's like even more confusing. It's like, okay,
Sure.
So we have subpoenas, but you're saying there's no responses to those subpoenas. Well, didn't Kraken get in trouble somewhere? Court ordered these subpoenas? No, none of that. So they complied. All right. So maybe that was conciliatory. Again, I go back to how fast this guy replied back with nothing. No, we're closing this out. And then, 10 months later down the road, you finally get some substance.
So,
but yeah, so they did split it. They did split it, yes.
So to recap go on. Sorry.
So we have 84 pages, 7 different subpoenas. We got that. That was really good information. We have, hey, proof. And then it got to an appeal, right? Because then you have to an appeal. You have one SEC officer. Again, the right hand's not talking to the left, but you got one guy doing the search saying no communications, and you got the other guy finding subpoenas. Okay, so all you got to do is marry the two together, and we asked them to do that. First, you have to kind of prove that on appeal, and so simple logic. SEC Office of Inspector General, because all these appeals go to the SEC OIG. Or OG, please use logic. And if you guys send us subpoenas, there's got to be communications. There's got to be. So use that logic and agree with us and remand this thing. So they did. Fortunately, they did, and we got a remand. And it was going back and forth. I mean, I dealt with 3 of the 4 FOIA heads. There's 4 FOIA heads. I dealt with 3 of them during this Kraken process, or had spoken to 3 of them. One of them, to be fair, has since retired. That was Adrienne Santos. She was the one I was primarily dealing with. I had issues with her, and it could be because she was retiring that she was so difficult, or it could be she was compromised. I mean, I don't know this stuff. I don't know. But she was difficult, and I dealt with Lizette Kankakilias. I'm going to butcher these names. I'm sorry. But I dealt with her on a portion of this FOIA. And then lastly, I dealt with Aaron Taylor. And I guess maybe he's the person who replaced Adrienne. I don't know. I ended up dealing with 3 people. And even he, at the end of all this, he comes back and he says, yeah, your communications, I ran a search and I found 69 boxes of documents that might be relevant to your search. It's like, it's a weird number.
From nothing, went no communications to 69 boxes.
Oh no! Before that, it was bigger. I don't know the exact number that they found, but yeah, that was their response that basically sent me over the edge, because here I am dealing with the 3rd FOIA officer, and I feel like I'm getting jerked around. I mean, that's a specific number, and come on, man. I mean, I know the SEC can play games too, right? So I didn't believe it. So I just sent him a reply back, and that was my last reply, and it had to be so specific that we were almost in danger of making it too narrow, if that makes sense. But what I did was, I had to do this. I said, look at the email addresses. So I gave him Jorge's email at the SEC and law enforcement at kraken.com. And then you had to be that specific, and then you also had to give them a roundabout date. So I said, okay, per your subpoena, here's your subpoena number just for your information. Here's the date it was issued. Here's 30 days later, whenever you requested this information back. Actually, in one of the subpoenas, the SEC wanted that information back same day. That was getting closer to 2019 as the case was getting ready. They were getting ready to launch the case, I guess. But anyway, so I had to be that specific. I mean, that's the only way that this would have worked. And I still had that answer to them, or that reply, or that search criteria back in April, and then they met with the New York regional office, and I'm assuming that place is a black hole. Things go there and they die. They don't come out. So that's where my request finally ended up. And lo and behold, we pulled a rabbit out of the hat. We were able through I think 3 different follow-ups with Aaron Taylor. And it was him. I can't give him too much grief at this point because he's dealing with the New York regional office. And I think that's where most of the issues are here. But so not to go on too much longer, but that's the Kraken FOIA in a nutshell. Yep.
Well, I do also want to just add to that. We talk about going down this rabbit hole of back and forth and trying to get the evidence, but always got to make the point for those who don't realize Reggie's a New York resident, and unless he had dual residency at the time, Kraken would not service accounts for just individual residents of the state of New York. So it would have had to be a business account. So we already know a lot of the context here. We know what information should be there, but this is just to give you just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what we have to go through to get evidence we basically already know exists.
Yeah, that's a great point, Adam. Actually, is the Kraken basically ceased operations in New York. So yeah, Reggie being a resident couldn't have had a personal account. And that was actually shared in his, 423 page reply to the original TRO, which I feel basically went ignored.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to give a little timeline on this, or to kind of package it up real nicely. So you guys basically filed the original Kraken FOIA for communications, came back nothing. Bar complaint was sent in for Jorge Tenrero, and then shortly after that, you got 84 pages or 7 subpoenas to Kraken, but no replies. So basically, it was kind of open-ended. Yes, we talked to Kraken, we got the subpoenas to them, and then that was all you saw. And then this 11th hour, basically, I think it was July 9th, was it? Or around, in and around then is when you actually got it. And that basically was the Kraken replies to the SEC subpoenas. And this is where the flash drive came in. This is where the emails came in, kind of proving as early as May 30th, 31st, 2018, that the SEC actually knew the account was corporate, and basically proves they fabricated this narrative of dissipating assets through a personal account, which is basically the whole case. This is the SEC's whole case against Reggie.
Right. And if you look at the docket, the SEC did respond to us. And they responded in Doc 127. That's where they brought in the you did a video on this, Riz, where they tried to confuse the judge maybe a little bit. I have no idea why they're talking about B whenever we're talking about D, and there's a huge difference because the SEC is saying, oh, these guys should have had 5, they should have brought this argument 5 years ago. We're fraud on the court, fraud against the judge, lying to the judge. That kind of stuff doesn't have a timeline that you have to bring it. I'm trying to think of the word, but it's not coming to me.
Yeah.
Statute of limitations.
That's it. Boom. Yep. Yes. So they replied back to us. I mean, we're a little, we're causing some issues here. And then that was on July 14th, and also on July 14th, we got a ruling. The judge issued an order, and I couldn't see this for quite a while. Then there was nothing to see. There's no rationale from the judge. There's nothing. So it's really hard to get angry at the guy because you don't really know what's in his head or in his heart. We're just we're just scratching our head confused, guys, because there's nothing. So he denied it, based on all this. And I'm pretty sure Reggie's counsel had their mouth hanging open too. Like, what in the heck, man? Don't you want to see this?
Mhm. It does seem pretty odd to me that it was kind of dismissed so easily and so quickly.
Yeah.
It basically happened the same. I mean, not the same day, but there was basically a lot of back and forth on July 14th, and I believe that's when he basically dismissed it. And this was the third amicus that the veridao submitted to the court, and this was basically a reply to the SEC's. Sorry.
That was our second. That was our second. So on July 9th, you're right on your dates. I got that FOIA reply the 9th. On the 10th, Kenny Hertz Perry notified the court, said, hey, this is very rare circumstances. We are talking out of place, but you need to see this. And
Mhm.
here's the emails. Here's the smoke and flash drive. Then on the 14th, the SEC got back, and they were a little sloppy in that because one of their pages has the 11th, July 11th, and one of them has July 14th. So they crafted this as soon as they saw it, but they didn't submit it till the 14th.
Oh,
That's where they used the more confusing language. That same day, Kenny Hertz Perry was filing a reply back to the judge, hey, the SEC, I don't know what the SEC is talking about here, with their motion B is or 60B as opposed to 60D. They were confusing. And so our attorney said that as well. Just, hey, this is actually what we're saying, Judge. And then later that night, the judge issued an order, motion denied on the motion to vacate. So I don't know. But I do know that it didn't take long, and we're back in the saddle again because later in July, that's whenever Reggie and the SEC started arguing about the Very Fair Fund and the final accounting. And we have FOIAs submitted there too, as Adam was talking about earlier. So I mean, there's a reason we're here. I mean, there is. We really are curious about this. God, we've been fighting for clarity since a no action letter request in 2021. I mean, don't tell us we don't have a reason to be here. We have,
sure.
at least in my mind. So
Well, I'd love to do this again with you guys because you guys have a few can of worms here. Oh, we just lost Michael. Do you want to pause this? Maybe we'll try and get Michael back. So great news. The second batch of very smart metal silver rounds have begun shipping. And I got a quote here from Quantum Metals. Shipping has resumed now, and we have a large list of back orders to process, but it's happening at speed. So special thanks to Quantum Metals. They're the only licensed dealer selling these very smart metal silver rounds. And they're an integral part in helping the veridao bring these to the community. So again, special thanks to Quantum Metals. There's only 6,566 of these very smart metal silver rounds, each one of them individually numbered, coming with their own embedded NFT found underneath this sticker here. Once removed, you got a QR code here that you can scan, allowing you to activate your NFT. If you'd like to find out more about these, check out the veridao.io website and look for smart metals. And it'll take you to a link to Quantum Metals where you can purchase one of these. So again, very smart metal silver rounds. Second batch now shipping. All right, so it seems like we just lost Michael, and I think we're going to kind of wrap it up here. But before we do, Adam, do you want to kind of tease us with anything for a future interview? I'd love to do this again.
Sure. So one thing that's on my mind is the VFF FOIA requests. So for those who don't know, Michael and I both had separate VFF FOIA requests working in tandem. His is still being worked at this point. Now, mine was recently closed out. So the response that I got from the FOIA office is that there was 97 gigabytes worth of data or however many hundreds of boxes. And so my response to that was going back to them and saying, hey, can you provide me a report or some kind of an itemized report that shows the categories of these different boxes? And I received a positive response saying, okay, we're going to look into this. And one of the other things I did when I responded was, please do not close out my request administratively as I work to understand what is in these 97 boxes worth of data. Because how am I supposed to refine the request if I don't even know what we're dealing
Yeah.
with? They're just giving me a general response here. 97 gigabytes worth of data. It's quite a bit. So a few months went by. I thought I was waiting on a report. I even inquired a couple of times via email. And just recently, I received a response, a final response. Actually, it was the same week as the smoking thumb drive. It was that same week. So, interestingly enough, but they basically said that the matter is being closed. I have the ability to appeal, but they basically did exactly what I asked them not to do. So
Hmm.
I know that Michael's got put into complex track, and that's something that he can talk about on our next interview. But it looks like they closed mine down, and we're going to see where we want to go from here, or if it's even necessary at this point. The second thing I'll talk about is the AGC SEC bar complaint handling. So this was a request that I made to the FOIA office after my specific bar complaint, after I sent it to the Attorney Grievance Committee, was sent back to the SEC, and I was looking for communications on that. Well, actually, just yesterday, I received a response to this, and they had 5 responsive documents, 2 of which they disclosed to me, which were redacted. And the 2 documents that they gave to me was, one, the email I sent to them asking, or actually when I originally filed the bar complaint, and then the second one was the clerk, the court clerk sending or referring that bar complaint to the AGC. So nothing really material there. And then as far as the 3 responsive records that they're holding back, which is probably the records that we're actually looking for, those were held under specific exemptions, and they cited attorney work product, deliberative process privilege, and attorney-client privilege. So I have the ability to appeal that as well. Not sure where we're going to go with that, but that could be something that continues in the future. But those are the updates, and I think also a good teaser for what the next interview could be about.
Yeah, I'd love to have you guys back for sure. I mean, there's so much to talk about. Michael, welcome back. I see you got disconnected there. Can you hear us?
I am sorry about that. Yeah, I
It's okay.
apologize.
Yeah, I was just talking with Adam about trying to do this again. He was kind of giving us a little teaser here on the VFF back and forth, as well as the AGC FOIAs. So yeah, I mean, I know we're running out of time. You both got to go to work, but I'd love to do this again if you guys want to catch up on either of these topics. But before we go, is there anything you want to add to the conversation, Michael?
Just that appreciate everybody's support. We have done a little bit more than we set out to do. And again, by that I mean I really was under the impression we would submit a single amicus brief, and that would be, encompass the community's what we've gone through, what the SEC's put us through since 2019. And it has become much more than that. And I'm so happy that we're separated apart. The connection was severed back in 2019. And yet here we are still standing next to Reggie, standing up with him.
The
Pick your
so-called
reason why you're
defrauded.
here. Exactly. We are defrauded, and in some folks' mind, they do. They really want to see justice served in that way. Some folks are just looking for the price of their, the price of the very token just to go up. Some of our community is interested in that. That's okay. That's very different. And again, there is diversity, tremendous diversity in our community. And so I say all that just to say is, yes, there definitely are going to be next steps. We are in the thick of it right now, actually, and I'm sure Adam talked about that while I dropped off. The VFF, I have actually appealed that already. So I read through all the documents, the recent ones from August, and the SEC itself says hey, the district court here where we are in SEC versus Middleton is not the case, not the place to be handling FOIA disputes. All right, I can kind of agree with that a little bit. This is the SEC itself saying it, by the way. So, so the SEC itself is saying we can't give these documents to you, Michael and Adam, because we are investigating them. They are a part of a law enforcement action.
Hmm.
And then we have an SEC attorney saying, no, the FOIA office at the SEC is the correct place. So again, you have the SEC defying logic and saying two things at once. And I even pointed that out in my appeal. You cannot use it as a shield in federal court, saying, hey, go talk to FOIA, and then as a sword as well.
Yeah.
Meaning that you can't just deflect all this stuff. I guess I got that backwards. The sword was the district court and the shield was the FOIA office. But that's the argument that I made, and I don't mind sharing that. Hopefully, I guess best case scenario is we are back in 30 days introducing more evidence. There's 97 gigabytes of data. There's a lot of data here, right? And we have a team that is committed if we get this information to reading it. I mean, there is no trust there. Trust is broken between us and the SEC, and you have videos on that, Riz, as well. So they encapsulate my feelings completely.
Well, let's do this again. I'd love to have you guys back. Like I said, there's so many different topics to talk about here. The VFF alone is turning out to be a monster topic. As we can see, a lot of the back and forth on the docket between Jason Siebert, Reggie's attorney, and the SEC. A new lawyer basically taking on the very fair fund final distribution that was wrapped up by, I believe it was Catherine Pappas, who retired. And now we have Allison Moon coming on board. And from my understanding, and this is just a quick read because there is so much going on here, but basically, Jason offered her extra time. She denied it or turned it down. He offered to meet with her and talk about some of these topics. She declined. The final accounting was court ordered and was never actually shared with anybody. So Jason ordered or submitted a motion to compel because there is essentially missing documents. There's a lot of questions to be asked. I think I read somewhere that the Holland and Knight was charging something like $9,600 an hour for attorney fees. I'm not sure if I got that
Yes.
right, which is
Yep.
insane to me for accounting of what just over 100 claimants of the Very Fair Fund. So there's a lot of interesting questions here to be asked, and a lot of back and forth again from the SEC and Jason. So I don't want to kind of summarize that real quick. I'd love to do another episode with you guys and kind of go over this. And again, like what Adam was talking about, the Attorney Grievance Committee FOIAs, the Vader platform FOIAs, who was actually there at the demonstration, the live demonstration, where Reggie went in and actually showed the Vader working. So yeah, I mean, we've got a few other things to talk about. And again, I'd love to have you guys back. And I really appreciate you guys coming on today and talking about the Kraken FOIAs, because
Yeah.
I really do think that smoking flash drive really is the Achilles heel to the SEC's case. And it's, in my opinion, quite fitting that the Veri community is the one that presented that information. And again, all of these amicus briefs were supported and funded directly by the Veri community, which in itself is unbelievable, in my opinion. The so-called defrauded coming together to pay for these amicus to support Reggie's motion to vacate. So it was denied. I do believe even if the SEC won or Reggie won, it would have been appealed by either party and taken to a higher court regardless. So yeah, basically the next part of the story is the Very Fair Fund and basically challenging that final distribution. So again, thank you very much for joining me today, guys. I really appreciate it and look forward to doing this again.
Hey,
Yeah,
Riz,
thanks for
can I
having
add
us.
one last thing?
Sure. Sure.
Just one last thing. If you're looking at the docket, and I would like to do this again, but the last two orders, they're not there. And so there is a status conference scheduled for August 26th, and that's for Reggie and the SEC, just a status conference on, I'm assuming we won't hear a ruling on the motion to compel until after this meeting.
Oh,
So if we
wow.
don't hear anything for like a week or 12 days, this is that order that was entered on August 7th. And then on August 8th, there's another order, and that basically agreed to the stipulation. So at this point, it says that Reggie has the time to file notice of appeal on the motion to vacate. That has been extended out to September 12th.
Okay.
So again, yeah, those are that is everybody's caught up, and I do hope that we talk again before the 26th or right around there so that we see what's going on.
Yeah, I'd love to. You guys just let me know when you're free, and I'd love to do this again. In fact, I'd love
Sounds
to do
good.
this a couple times if you can, because like I said, the topics are so dense, and there's so much to cover, that I'd really kind of like to go into it as much as we can without leaving anything out if possible. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
If I would just say too, some of the best questions come from that Telegram chat, our community. So if there are suggestions of having an open chat there, or I know that you have a successful X handle, Riz. You have done Twitter Spaces or X Spaces in the past. Anything, any ideas like that from the community, if they would like to engage, because again, I think they have very good questions.
Sure. Maybe what we could do is kind of back it up. We could do a video and then back it up with an X space. Have the community join us, asking questions. I think that'd be a great way to do it.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say thanks to everybody as well, because again, we could not have done this without the support of, wow, there are hundreds of us still after all of this time, and it just feels good to be among like-minded folks.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Do you want to leave us with any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, really, I'm going to just focus on the community itself, just kind of piggybacking off of what Michael said, but just the fact that you're all here and any support that you have given in any capacity is what makes us able to do what we're doing. So, anytime anyone's doing things of greatness, and I think that this is something that could be great, could have an amazing turnaround story. We're working towards it, but we're doing it all in the dark. We're doing it when the rest of the world doesn't care.
Hmm.
And we're actually here. We're all here with our attention, our energy, anything that we have that we can throw at this to help make it happen. So I appreciate everybody's support and continued support. And you're going to continue seeing us doing the work that it takes to have a successful turnaround here.
I appreciate you both, and I appreciate the community. Guys, we've, just to put this into context, about 150 bar complaints against Jorge Tenrero, who was demoted to the IT department. 52 were backed up by affidavits. That's that's incredible. So thank you all. And again, look forward to interviewing you guys again, talking more about some of these FOIAs, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Likewise.
Thank you
Thank
guys.
you all.
Thanks.